The Venezuelan government has condemned the extension for 1 year of the executive order declaring Venezuela a threat to the United States' national security. The Islamic resistance movement, Hamas, has welcomed the decision adopted this Wednesday by the International Criminal Court to launch an investigation into Israeli crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories. In Brazil, authorities registered a Wednesday on second consecutive record number of COVID-19 fatalities, sparking protests against President Jair Bolsonaro for his management of the pandemic. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. The Venezuelan government has condemned the extension for 1 year of the executive order declaring Venezuela a threat to the United States' national security. In a statement shared on Twitter by Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza, the Venezuelan government categorically rejected the renewal of the illegal decree, under which the U.S. government applies unilateral coercive measures as part of its policy of cruel and systematic attacks against the Venezuelan people. The statement also highlights that this illegal measure goes against the clear call issued by the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the negative impact of the unilateral coercive measures on the enjoyment of human rights, who recently visited the country and stressed the need to lift the sanctions that go against international law and harm the Venezuelan people. The United States administration of Joe Biden extended the national emergency declared with respect to Venezuela this Wednesday. According to President Joe Biden, the circumstances described in the original and subsequent executive orders issued with respect to Venezuela have not improved, and the country continues to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and also to the foreign policy of the United States, leading to his decision to extend the emergency for another year. It should be recalled that the executive order was originally issued by former President Barack Obama in 2015 and extended under the Trump administration. On Wednesday, Venezuela paid tribute to African independence leaders. Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza presented the leaders with the Order of Francisco de Miranda. The Foreign Minister highlighted the strong bonds of brotherhood between both continents, the heroic struggle for the working class, and the need to fight for the unity of the peoples in order to overcome the threats of imperialism. The recipients of the prestigious decoration were His Excellency Sam Nujoma, the founding father of the Republic of Namibia, also former President of Mozambique, His Excellency Joaquim Chissano, Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister of Namibia, Zimbabwe's Minister of Defense, Her Excellency Opa Mushinguri, the President of the Republic of Angola, Her Excellency Lucia Ingles Dunem, the father of South Africa, His Excellency Oliver Tambo, received the decoration posthumously. In a video message sent on the occasion, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros expressed his gratitude for the international support of African countries amidst the illegal, coercive, unilateral measures imposed by the U.S. government.
The international solidarity that you, all your countries and peoples have expressed for our beloved Venezuela, it is what I want to thank today, in these moments in which we have been the target of fierce attacks by imperialism. Venezuela, as you know, is the heir of the independence struggles in our continent, and our revolution takes up the legacy that the liberators of the Americas saw for the free peoples of the world.
President Maduro also highlighted the importance of unity in the fight against imperialism.
Commander Hugo Chavez taught us to see the African continent as our mother, Mother Africa, not only because of the historical and ethnic roots that unite us, but because we share the same destiny, the same future. Therefore, the importance of our unity so that we can face the world powers as equal peoples. They want to see us separated, divided, but we must continue advancing in the integration between continents and peoples. Today, more than ever, it is necessary to unite our struggles to defeat the threats that threaten us. We see how imperialism is the neocolonialism of the 21st century.
And the founding father of the Republic of Namibia reiterated the country's support for international dialogue.
It's also a call from people all over the world who who are seeking an end to all kinds of injustice and oppression. Namibia will always support constructive international dialogue with full respect for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and equality of nations in the interest of coexistence, peace, and harmonious cooperation.
Former President of Mozambique, Joaquim Chissano, denounced the existing challenges posed by colonialism.
Today, when we are witnessing the threat of maintaining colonialism and imperialism in the world, African people continue to debate and face the negative effects of colonialism and imperialism, such as poverty, hunger, malnutrition, illiteracy, and the lack of adequate health care.
Zimbabwe's defense minister condemned the coercive sanctions imposed against the peoples of the world.
We continue to be victims of punitive sanctions imposed by imperialist powers against which we fought many years ago. Due to our determination to regain control of our human resources, we have been punished for our firm convictions, for our strong ideas of revolutionary heroes such as Miranda.
We'll take a short break now. Follow us on Twitter at TeleSUR English and Gladys TeleSUR. Welcome back to From the South. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas has welcomed the decision taken on Wednesday by the International Criminal Court to launch an investigation into Israeli crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories. The decision turns the court's focus towards the key Israeli policies of recent years, its repeated military operations against Palestinian militants in the Gaza Strip, and its expansion of Jewish settlements in the East Jerusalem at the occupied West Bank.
Welcomes the decision of the International Criminal Court's General Prosecutor to open an investigation into Israeli war crimes against our Palestinian people, and considers this decision a step forward to implement justice, punish the occupation, and do justice to the Palestinian people. We call on the International Criminal Court, which showed great courage by taking this decision, to resist all pressures that could be exerted on it, prevent it from conducting its message, and to continue its way by doing justice to our people and punishing the Israeli occupation which has committed these crimes.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out at the International Criminal Court for its probe into Israel's war crimes in the occupied Palestinian territories. The decision prompted swift Israeli condemnation, with Netanyahu accusing the court of pure anti-Semitism and claiming that the state of Israel is under attack. Prosecutor Fatou Bensouda said in a statement that the probe will examine crimes within the jurisdiction of the court that have allegedly been committed since June 13, 2014, and that the investigation will be conducted independently, impartially, and objectively without fear or favor. And in a clear show of its support for Israel, the United States government expressed its opposition to the ICC probe into Israeli war crimes. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said the U.S. was disappointed with the announcement of the investigation and opposed actions that seek to target Israel unfairly, while stressing that the U.S. will continue to uphold its strong commitment to Israel and its security. The ruling Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party announced that Prime Minister Imran Khan will seek a vote of confidence from Parliament after his finance minister lost out on the most contested seat in Senate elections held on Wednesday. Voting started at 9 a.m. for an election that has been marred by accusations of corrupt practices and also controversy over the voting method. The government and opposition alliance had both waged a tough competition to get their candidates elected, respectively to the Senate's general seat from Islamabad. Ruling party candidate and Foreign Minister Abdul Hafiz Siddiqui lost out to former Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani of the opposition Pakistan's People's Party. Analysts see Gilani's win as a tantamount to a major upset for Khan's government, as it implies that some party members of allies may have defected when they voted by secret ballot. The Houthi movement fighting in Yemen has said the United Nations sanctions against two of its leaders will prolong the war and worsen the humanitarian crisis in the country. The U.S. sanctions come after the Biden administration lifted the foreign terrorists designation for the group. The sanctions were announced on Tuesday against the Houthi Naval Forces Chief of Staff and also against the commander of Yemen's Houthi-aligned Yemeni Air Force and Air Defense Forces, citing their alleged roles in cross-border attacks on Saudi Arabia and shipping vessels in the Red Sea. The administration of President Joe Biden lifted a Trump-era designation of the Houthis, which banned Americans from doing businesses with them and also made it a crime to provide support or resources to the movement. The United States has warned it may consider a military response to the rocket attack early Wednesday that hit an air base in western Iraq, where U.S. and coalition troops are housed. A U.S. contractor died after at least 10 rockets slammed into the base. No group has yet claimed responsibility for the attack, which was the first since the U.S. struck Iran-aligned militia targets along the Iraq-Syria border last week, killing one militiaman. That strike stoked fears of another cycle of tit-for-tat attacks. In a press briefing, Pentagon Press Secretary John Kirby defended the strike against Syria and warned that the U.S. will respond to the latest attack in Iraq if it identified a need to. The Iraqi military released a statement saying that Wednesday's attack did not cause significant losses and that security forces had found a launch pad used for the rockets, a truck. And violence erupted in Nigeria on Wednesday as 279 kidnapped schoolgirls were returned to their families. Security forces shot live ammunition against people gathering outside the government girls' secondary school in Jangebe, in the northwest of the country, on Wednesday, while some of the students kidnapped last week were reunited with their families inside the building. According to local media, one person died and 2 were injured. The reasons behind the incident were not immediately clear, but according to local reports, security forces reacted when some youth began throwing stones at the convoy of the Commissioner of Security and Home Affairs, who had traveled to the town for the occasion. Due to the situation, the government of Zamfara state announced a curfew. We'll take a short break now, but we'll be right back, so don't go away. Welcome back. Brazil registered a second consecutive record number of COVID-19 deaths on Wednesday as the country faces its most lethal phase of the pandemic. After recording the highest number of fatalities in a day since the start of the pandemic on Tuesday, the country registered a record 1,910 fatalities on Wednesday, pushing the total death toll past to 259,000. There were also over 71,000 new cases reported in 24 hours, the second worst number since the first case of COVID-19 in February 2020, bringing the total number of infections to 10.7 million. Brazilian protesters against President Jair Bolsonaro from their windows and balconies amid the record daily coronavirus death toll. Residents yelled, "Get out, Bolsonaro," and banned pots and pans to express their anger at the president's handling of the health crisis. The situation has been exacerbated by the surge in cases stemming from the holidays and carnival season, when many people ignored the cancellation of official events to hold large gatherings and clandestine parties. Sudan received its first batch of coronavirus vaccine from the United Nations-led COVAX initiative on Wednesday to become the first country in the Middle East and North Africa region to receive doses through this initiative. The COVAX mechanism was formed to ensure vaccines for low and middle-income countries, but it has been hampered by the several limited global supply of doses and logistical problems. The shipment, produced by the Serum Institute in India, was part of 3.4 million doses Sudan is due to receive through COVAX. Health Minister Omar Ahmed Al-Najib said the country's vaccination campaign will begin soon and prioritize healthcare workers and the elderly.
vaccines reached today will be enough for a big part of those working in the health professions, because they are more susceptible to being infected. They will get vaccines first, for the sake of offering a safe health service for our citizens. The vaccine will be free for all citizens. More shipments will be arriving consecutively, God willing.
Angola has begun its vaccination campaign against COVID-19 after the West African country received the first doses of the vaccine through the COVAX initiative.
Angola is part of the COVAX initiative since July 2020. We celebrated agreements to access vaccines against COVID-19 to cover 20% of our population without costs. In this context, today arrived to Luanda the first 624,000 doses of the COVID-19 vaccines, made available through COVAX and part of a total of more than 2 million doses to arrive up until May this year. This vaccine was developed by Oxford University along with the company AstraZeneca. At this stage, firstly, we intend to vaccinate those most exposed, as health professionals, teachers, police and security forces, people with comorbidity, elderly people and the population above 40.
And Rwanda became the first African country to receive the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine on Wednesday, with the delivery of nearly 103,000 doses in what the pharmaceutical giant called a milestone for the continent. The doses, which arrived in the capital Kigali, were provided through the United Nations-led COVAX initiative, which aims to provide equitable access to COVID-19 vaccines for the poorest countries. Vaccinations will begin on Friday, and the country of 12 million people plans to immunize 30% of its population this year and 60% by the end of 2022. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel Bermúdez congratulated Cuban scientists on accomplishing another success in the fight against COVID-19 with the announcement of the new vaccine candidate named Soberana 01A. Soberana 01A is the fifth candidate created in the country to vaccinate against COVID-19. The announcement was made by its creators in a weekly meeting between the president and health experts. The other four vaccine candidates are currently in different stages of clinical trials. Soberana 02 entered phase 3 trials on March the 1st and is considered the most advanced vaccine candidate. The other candidates are Soberana 01, Abdala and Mambisa. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced the presence of the Brazilian variant of COVID-19 in some states of the country this Wednesday and urged the population to strengthen biosecurity measures.
The presence of the Brazilian variant of COVID-19 in Venezuela. Here, I have the report and we are going to provide details. It is a variant that, as you know, is more contagious. It transmits a greater viral load, which means that it is more dangerous, more serious, and according to all the data we have regarding the evolution of the pandemic in Brazil, well, it has collapsed first the state of Amazonas, the state of Roraima, as we learned in November, December, January, and now Brazil has collapsed in a third, frightening wave.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel announced on Wednesday that the country will extend its coronavirus shutdown by 3 weeks until March 28th, but with easing of some restrictions in areas with relatively low infection rates. After about 9 hours of talks, the Chancellor and governors of the country's 16 states agreed to measures aimed at balancing concern over the impact of the more contagious coronavirus variants with a growing clamor for a return to a more normal life. Regions where infection rates are relatively low will be able to open non-essential stores, museums and other facilities on a limited basis. The decision opened up the possibility of reopening more businesses through it conclude an emergency brake mechanism that will see the restrictions now in place reimposed if the weekly infection level exceeds 100 per 100,000 residents on 3 consecutive days. The Brazilian state of Sao Paulo, one of the hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, is to return to a red phase of restrictions to stem the spread of COVID-19 from Saturday. State Governor João Doria warned that the state was set to face the worst 2 weeks since the start of the pandemic in March of last year.
The increase in the number of cases, hospitalizations and deaths from coronavirus, the entire state of Sao Paulo will be classified in the red phase of the Sao Paulo plan for the next Saturday, March 6 until Friday, March 19. It will be 14 days of red phase. Today is the most difficult day I've ever faced because of the diagnosis of the situation and because of the measures that must be taken so that we continue to fight back. Due to the
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.